let's say, your business and produce some more cases?
It's true. I don't know on that with the weather like this outside. Yes, that is a good question, and it's very straightforward because 99% of what we put in our bottles, and of that, there's about billions that we sell each year worldwide, is water. And that water has to come from somewhere, and this water can only be taken from a very healthy environment. And obviously the products that we want to sell have to be sold and want to be sold in sustainable communities, because otherwise there is not a market. And for example, in Europe alone, we produce about 18 billion litres of Coca Cola beverage products or the like. And that is the equivalent of 18 billion litres that have to come somewhere, just to name some numbers. And as any business, I suppose, we want to grow, we want to develop, we want to increase, as Fritz said, the cases that we sell. And if you look at the future from a pure business perspective, it looks actually quite interesting. There is a huge population growth coming up. There is urbanization flourishing, so more people living in towns. There is, as to be expected, the middle classes are rising and increasing wealth in the middle classes. So from a pure business perspective, you might think the future is actually quite rosy. But I think that's one of the very interesting changes over the past years in business, that it has shifted a little bit the discussion internally from a pure business perspective to a, oh, that's really great, but what is the other side? What's the other side of the medal, really, of that actually quite rapid population growth and urbanization, social change? And you come very quickly to environmental arguments, and you come quickly to arguments about public health, and very quickly about water, whether you talk about climate change and then the adaptation to climate change, or simply about water scarcity, access to water and sanitation, and so on and so forth, going all the way to security and safety. And if you are a global business and you want to do business all over the world, then this is what you really see as core of your business, to make sure that you can, you can't control it, you understand the risks that are associated with it, and you figure out ways of what you as a company can do directly in your operations, the way you operate, but also, well, given that Coke is not exactly an unknown brand, an unknown company, what can we do with that sort of brand leadership, with that people knowing us, to actually influence things beyond our factory walls. And we have a very clear-cut water strategy that is reduce, recycle and replenish. And if you go beyond the three words, it's essentially really what do we do within our factory walls, and that's essentially reducing water consumption, increasing efficiency, but also on the other side, which is equally important, I think gets forgotten quite often, is treatment of wastewater, reduction of pollution, which we have set ourselves the goal of by 2010, so in 2 years' time, that all our factories, so whether it is somewhere in sub-Saharan Africa or in Europe or in Asia, will treat 100% of the wastewater to an absolute standard that you can, well, have fish life in it afterwards. So very high levels. On the other side, the replenish goal is very much connected with looking beyond our factory walls. And as Fritz said, we have obviously numerous community water partnerships and activities in countries. We have about 140, 150 very, very local, very tailor-made, as I heard today, community water partnerships. We connect and have partnerships on a regional level, as in Europe now with the European Water Partnership, to increase awareness and to have what Martin said, to increase and improve that connection on a regional level, because I think that's a bit of a challenge to bring some activities from a very local and isolated level to a bit more of a regional level, and that we start in Europe. And we have a very global partnership with WWF, for example, but also with others. But I find the interesting thing about the WWF partnership is that it really goes across the board on water. So they work with us on issues around agriculture, so really looking into ingredients and sustainable ingredients. They work with us on issues like climate change and operational carbon reductions, and they go all the way to a watershed and water resource protection program that we have with them, where we work together to protect and help protect at least around 5 international river basins. In Europe it is the Danube River, in Asia it's the Yangtze and the Mekong. We work together on the Mesoamerican Reef in Latin America and on Lake Nyassa in Africa. So it's really going across the board, and it's all programs that are done that are relevant there, be it pollution reduction or biodiversity or wetlands change. And I was asked, I think, before this session, whether I can say what works, what doesn't work, and what the challenges are. I think one of the things we found is with many partnerships, in particular if we wanted to have a grand scale and really large scale, we spent a lot of time preparing it. The WWF partnership was announced last year in June, but we have been speaking to each other for 5 years previously until we got to that point to actually be able to sign to do something together.